Good afternoon, everyone. I show 3 o'clock here on my cell phone. My name is Katie Creighton, and along with Dean Bruce, who you will meet momentarily, we are co-leads of NMDA's Healthy Soil Program. Today is webinar number 2. This webinar is specific to individual applicants. We will get into that definition in just a moment. First, we welcome you to today's webinar. And in order to make you feel properly welcome, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat, noting where you're located in New Mexico. If you want to mention the amount of snow you got today, you're welcome to do that as well. Let us know, are you managing crops? Are you managing livestock for grazing purposes? Maybe you manage land for another purpose. So where you're located in New Mexico, your name, and what it is that you manage your land for. A couple of housekeeping notes that during the presentation, we'll keep you on mute. And we ask you to keep your video turned off. That's so we can preserve the bandwidth that is, it seems, extra limited in times of inclement weather. So because your mics are turned off, we invite you to ask questions as they occur to you. Just pop those into the chat. Alternatively, you might have a question that doesn't translate well in writing. It may translate better in real time. And if that's the case, we will invite you after the presentation to use that raise hand feature, which I will circle here with my mouse at the bottom of the screen. And once you use the raise hand feature, we'll be able to control things on our end so that you're invited to unmute to ask your question. And just to let you know, these slides and a caption recording, which will take some time to produce, both of those items will be posted soon on our individual applicants' webpage. The slides sooner than the captioned recording. Again, we welcome you to today's webinar. A pretty straightforward agenda here. We'll go through the who, what, when, where, and how. So who and what projects are eligible are the first topics that we'll bite off, followed by when and where projects can happen. The bulk of our time today will easily be put toward how to apply. We've got a step-by-step process outlined online, and that's the process that we'll be walking you through today. And as I suggested on the previous slide, we'll invite your questions so that we can offer our answers at the end of the presentation. So first question is very basic. Who is eligible to apply for the Healthy Soil Program grants available from the New Mexico Department of Agriculture? And we welcome applications from 2 applicant types. I'll spend just a brief moment on the left side of the screen to describe to you our eligible entities. That's not who we're talking to right now, but just so you're aware if you're in the right webinar or maybe should have attended earlier. Our eligible entities are governmental. You can see the definition there on the left side of the screen. Those are the local governmental entities in the state with proven land management capacity to support healthy soil. So maybe you're here as a farmer, you're here as a rancher, or another type of land manager, but you also lead or work at a pueblo, a tribe, a nation here in New Mexico, an acequia, a land grant, a soil and water conservation district. Maybe you're involved in extension. Those parties can apply separately for grants from the same program, NMDA's Healthy Soil Program. And they have the same application period, January 15th through March 19th. Their awards, of course, are larger because those projects benefit more people. Now, shifting your focus to the right side of the screen, who we are talking to for the next 90 minutes, if we fully occupy that time, are individual applicants. So those parties are non-governmental. They may be individuals, businesses, nonprofits. If you're nodding your head saying, yep, that's the hat I'm wearing, you are in the right webinar. Again, alternatively, if you intended to be in that eligible entity webinar, it has come and gone, but you'll see a recording available on our website soon. All right, individual applicants. As I suggested, the application period does not launch until mid-January. So this truly is a pre-application webinar meant to get you excited about applying for the program and showing you the major steps to take at the start to get prepared for that January launch. You can see there at the bottom of the screen that awards of up to just south of $25,000 are available to these projects. I say award because that figure is inclusive of the mileage and the administrative fee that will get paid to your project sponsor. We'll talk about those topics on down the road. And this is where I'd like to turn it over to my co-lead to talk through the technical aspects of NMDA's Healthy Soil Program, Dean Bruce. Dean?
Okay, thank you, Katie. If we'll move to the next slide, we'll kind of go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to discuss, pretty simple, where can the Healthy Soil Program funded projects occur? So as Katie turns to the next slide, this is pretty much anywhere in New Mexico. This can include any type of operation, cropland, rangeland, irrigated pasture, forest lands, orchards, vineyards, gardens. Those can include backyard gardens, market gardens, subsistence gardens, community gardens, and basically any type of production system. However, there must be an existing relationship to the land. So, you, as the individual applicant, it could be land that you own, land that you lease, or land that you manage on another's behalf. However, if you do not own the land, you must have landowner permission to implement a soil health project on land that you do not own. But the one thing I do want everybody to take home today is that these projects can occur on any amount of land, from acres all the way down to square foot. And so I don't want you to get don't want anybody to get discouraged because they don't have a large operation. So we do put Healthy Soil Program funding towards all sizes of operations. Next slide, please. Okay, so when these projects can occur, when the Healthy Soil Program projects can occur, and as Katie turns to the next slide, this is going to be a major improvement to the Healthy Soil Program. Those of you that may have been involved in the past or have seen our grant period in the past will be pleasantly surprised that our grant period has now been extended. The projects that you're going to apply for starting in January will last up to 15 months. The actual project start date will be mid-July of 2025, and they will end at the end of September in 2026. And so that gives you well over a year to implement these projects. And so as you're starting the brainstorming process of what can I do and when can I do it and things like that, this is going to be a key component to putting together your grant application, knowing that you will have from July 2025 to September 2026 to complete these projects. And so that gives you plenty of time within the agriculture calendar to complete a variety of projects from fall cover crops, spring cover crops to summer cover crops. It's going to give you increased amount of time to complete those projects. So huge improvement in the program, and want everybody to make note of the extended grant period as you're planning your project. So next slide, please. So, what projects are eligible for NMDA's Healthy Soil Program? So, next slide, please. As many of you know, and some of you may not, the NMDA Healthy Soil Program grant program is based upon the five soil health principles you're seeing in front of you right now. These come specifically out of the act that created the program. And so we're going to go through those one at a time. But bear in mind, as we're going through these, your project must address at least or utilize at least one of these soil health principles. The one thing I do want to make note that as we're talking about these principles, just understand that these principles are not necessarily prescriptive, but they're guiding principles to help you understand how you can increase the health of your soil on your land. So, soil health principle number one is keeping soil covered. And so this is one of the primary methods of improving soil health is to make sure you have adequate soil cover. You can do that by planting a cover crop. You may want to leave some crop residue after you harvest your cash crop in the field to decompose. On rangeland, you may want to graze at an intensity that will maintain plant cover and your overall forage base. But soil health principle number one is just to keep soil covered. Soil health principle number two is to minimize disturbance on cropland and minimize external inputs. And so when we think about this, we want to try best we can to minimize any disturbance that we have on cropland. We can do that through using a minimal till or a no-till approach when we plant our cash crops or our cover crops. We can also manage our rangelands again at an intensity that does not overly disturb the forage base on our rangelands. And another thing to consider as we look at this particular soil health principle is we want to minimize those external inputs. We want to minimize the amount of chemical inputs that we utilize. These could be synthetic chemicals such as pesticides, insecticides, rodenticides, all that kind of stuff. But we want to minimize those external inputs that we're having to bring from off farm to improve our production system. So we want to minimize those as best as we can. Soil health principle number three is to maximize biodiversity, and so we can accomplish this by growing different plants. It's as simple as that. You want to try to aim for a diversity of plant species on your land. You could do that by a multi-species cover crop. You could also do that by incorporating other crops into your normal crop rotation, so that you have different crop types growing at different points of the year. And this allows for different rooting depths, different nutrient requirements, and so we want to aim for that biodiversity on the lands that you're potentially enrolling in the program. Number four is to maintain a living root. And maintaining a living root has a host of benefits to improving your soil health. And we can achieve this by growing long season crops. You could also plant a cover crop after a short season cash crop, or instead of having a fallow period on your cropland, you could plant a cover crop or just alter your crop rotation so that you try to so that you aim for maintaining a living root during the vast majority of the year. On rangeland, we want to attempt again. Rangeland revolves around managing our grazing animals, and so we want to manage our grazing in a manner that's going to improve our overall forage base. And by doing that, we're going to have a healthy mix of warm season grasses, cool season grasses, forbs, shrubs, things of that nature, so that you can maintain that living root. Because the way I look at roots is they're basically straws into the ground, and they help you take more water into the ground. And then number five, integrating animals into land management. This can include grazing animals, birds, beneficial insects, or keystone species such as earthworms. We can accomplish this by maybe grazing crop residues that we don't traditionally graze. We could incorporate a bale grazing plan on both cropland or rangeland to improve our overall organic matter and again have those animals on the landscape. And then we could also plant pollinator habitat, which improves the pollination of your, say, your vegetable crops or things like that. Those are all some of the methods that you can utilize to address those soil health principles. Again, the one thing I want you to think about as you're developing a project within your head is these principles are not prescriptive, but they're simply designed to help guide you to select the practices that you need to keep your soil covered or to minimize disturbance on cropland. And so just want to kind of get you in that frame of mind to begin to think about how you could utilize these soil health principles. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's some of the sample projects that we have funded on cropland, and I just want to let everyone know this is by far not the entire gamut of the projects that we have funded, but this is just a small sample. We can't go through all of them today, but planting a diverse mix of cover crops on your cropland, establishing pollinator habitat, applying biochar or maybe compost. These are some of the things that we've seen on a regular basis with the Healthy Soil Program. And so just to kind of get the thoughts churning in your head about what you might could do on your own land. Next slide, please. Now, these are some of the sample projects that we have funded on rangeland. Again, this is not all of the projects that we funded, but we just kind of selected a few that seem to be either unique or continually utilized through the Healthy Soil Program. And on the upper right-hand portion of your screen, you'll see that the Healthy Soil Program funding has been utilized to assist landowners, land managers in implementing an intensive rotational grazing system and lengthening the rest recovery periods on their land to improve their overall forage base. Bottom right-hand side, you'll see that we've also funded bale grazing projects. And what bale grazing projects help do is to build organic matter. They integrate animals into the landscape, and if done correctly, can definitely help improve the organic matter and the fertility of the land that it is utilized on. Over on the left-hand side, you're going to see a kind of a new project that has been funded. This is subsoiling. And essentially what this is, it's typically done on rangeland, and it's designed to break up compaction layers that may exist to help with water infiltration, stimulate root growth, and just kind of help break up that compaction layer so that the roots can channel down deeper and be more resilient to drought conditions. And so, what this amounts to is we have some individuals that are using it's a straight shank ripper, which causes very little disturbance. As you can see in that photo, you have to actually look fairly close to see where that actually went, where the path of the ripper went. I believe Katie's tracing it with her mouse right now, and so causes very little surface disturbance, but it will definitely break up that compaction layer. And so, kind of get some ideas rolling around in your head as you're thinking about your project. If you're looking at rangeland, these are some of the things that you might think about as you develop your project. Next slide, please. Okay, one interesting thing that we have finally completed and got live on our website is a map of all of our projects and locations across the state that have been funded in the past or are currently funded with the previous fiscal year funds. And so, to kind of guide you through this process, it is a virtual interactive map. What you will do is you'll click on the dot and it will tell you the project summary, where that project occurred, acres, things of that nature. You'll notice that the red dots, those are the eligible entity projects, those local governmental entities that apply for those larger scale projects that Katie mentioned earlier. But also the turquoise dots are the individual applicant dots, and that's who we're speaking to right now is potential individual applicants. And so we encourage you to take a look at this map as you're maybe searching for project ideas or ideas within your area, things that you may think will work within your area. You can search around, click on those dots, and determine some of the projects that have already occurred, and maybe that will help guide you into developing a project of your own. So it's at this point I'm going to go ahead and then turn it back over to Katie to continue on with the presentation.
Thank you, Dean. And if you're sitting there in your chair thinking, my goodness, sounds to me like Dean is in production agriculture, you're right about that. He farms and also grows some livestock out in eastern New Mexico. So a good technical resource for our program. Next question is, how do you apply for a grant from the Healthy Soil Program? And this is where we will spend the bulk of our time this afternoon. Again, we have this webinar scheduled until 4:30. We won't keep you on that long unless you have questions to help us fill up that time. So we'll step through the process here. The answer to the question of how you apply, it's right here. Every little thing you'll need to apply as an individual applicant. Again, talking about those individuals, those businesses, those nonprofits, non-governmental parties, essentially. Everything you'll need to apply is right here on this very website that you see a screenshot of there on your screen. We've got 6 steps laid out as part of the process for applying. But today we'll focus only on the top 3. So we'll talk about step 1, contacting the partners for your project. Step 2, completing conservation planning, a really critical component of our program. You can see that we have a deadline set of February 21st for that piece of the program. Step number 3 is where you'll invest a lot of time, and that's in developing your project. So again, following that yellow box on the left side of the screen, we really encourage you to tackle these steps this month or next month. Again, contacting those partners, getting conservation planning under your belt, and working to develop your project. Provided you do those things, that puts you in great stead for steps 4 through 6, which are illustrated on the bottom of the screen. So that's working on the online application when it launches in January, securing project sponsorship. We'll talk about that more in just a moment. And last but not least, finalizing that application before you press submit. So if you want to take a moment and grab your smartphone, I invite you to snag a quick grab of this QR code at the bottom right of your screen. It will take you to the web page that is specific to individual applicants, the requirements that you must follow in order to make application to our grant program. So we'll walk through the steps and also check out the materials on that very web page. And I've got to trust that everyone in the audience has probably seen this page. This is the landing page for the Healthy Soil Program. And I'll just show you a few things that live here quickly before we dive into the specific requirements for individual applicants. So you'll get a reminder of those 5 soil health principles that Dean dove into earlier. A reminder of our grant application period being between January 15th and March 19th. And a reminder of who we consider eligible to make application to our program. Of course, we've got eligible entities. Again, those are our governmental parties. But you're here as a non-governmental party, as an individual, a business, a nonprofit, anyone who's actively engaged in farming, ranching, or another form of land management in New Mexico and who's not a governmental party, we consider you part of our individual applicant pool. We'll come back and click on this link in just a moment, but I want to show you a few other things that live on this website. Here's the map that Dean mentioned. So I invite you to spend some time clicking around on that. Bit of background on our program. And if you've not already subscribed for weekly program updates from us, we invite you to come back at your own time to complete this form. We try to keep those emails pretty pithy, leading with whatever's new and good about the Healthy Soil Program. So we'll offer application tips and deadline reminders as part of those weekly emails. We also like to feature soil health events happening in the state and in the region. So if you happen to be aware of some of those events, maybe you're involved in their planning and production, we would be glad to help relay that message to others who also share an interest in soil health. So again, showing you that you can get subscribed for those weekly emails. I'm going to take you back up top so that we head on over to the web page specific to individual applicants. And again, just interested in showing you what lives here. So a reminder of who we consider eligible through this individual applicant pool. Reminding you of our application deadline. It's March 19th of next year. And this is a really critical piece here that we make clear to you that applications that come into us late, that come in incomplete, or that are submitted in any other way other than our online portal, those applications will not be accepted. What I mean by that is they will not be reviewed, they will not be considered for funding, feedback will not be offered to you. So you want to make sure that your application is on time, it's complete, and it's submitted through the online portal that we'll show you here shortly. Hey, you can put a pin in this. You can see that this is where our frequently asked questions document will soon live. Document coming soon. The reason I say soon is because we will put this document to bed after today's webinar. So think about the good questions that you've had living in the back of your brain for a while. Now's the time to get those asked in the chat, or later after the presentation, you can ask them out loud. But those good questions that have relevance to multiple parties, multiple individual applicants, those good questions Dean and I will harvest from the chat and make part of the FAQ document. As you'll see here, this is where we'll be posting our outreach opportunities. So you'll want to stay tuned for another webinar coming at you after we launch the application in early 2025. And as I already pointed out to you, the invitation to get subscribed for weekly updates. Okay, so this is the feature I'll show you here. We've got some drop-down menus comprising the majority of this page. The first one is the application document checklist. If you read this and this alone, you are doing yourself a disservice. This is just a one-stop shop so that you can check the list when you are making application to our program to say, yep, I've got images of my project site. Yep, I visited web soil survey. I did conservation planning. If you've got a bale grazing component to your project, this is where you can find that template. We've also got our timeline and budget template posted here, our letter of support template, other supporting items that are optional as part of your application. Again, this is just a checklist to help you see what's required. But like I said, if this is all you're looking at on this page, you're doing yourself a great disservice. What you want to do is click on each of these drop-down menus, each of which is associated with a step in our step-by-step application process. So this is where I'll invite Dean to walk us through some of these steps, starting with step one.
Okay, thank you, Kay. So, step one is probably the most important step that you're gonna get to start with is to identify and contact the partners that you're going to work with as you develop and apply for your Healthy Soil Program grant. The key partners here are listed. First partner that you're going to contact, there's no particular order. You need to contact them both as soon as possible. But USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service, you're going to want to contact your local NRCS office because they are going to be the individuals that are going to help you with conservation planning. And I think Katie's going to click on the link so that you'll see what that'll look like so that you can find your local office. And basically, this takes you to USDA NRCS New Mexico's map. You'll then click on your county and it will identify the local service center and where it's located, the contact information, and to help you find your NRCS planner that's going to help you through the conservation planning process. And so, again, you'll click on that map, find your county, and find your local service center. And so that's what that portion of it will look like. So you're not surprised, and you can easily navigate that. So once you've contacted your NRCS office and let them know of your plans to apply for the Healthy Soil Program, your next step is to contact your project sponsor. Your project sponsor is going to be the entity that's going to help you administer your grant, carry the financial burden on it as far as helping collect and reimburse invoices and things like that. So you have two options: either your local soil and water conservation district, or if you happen to be a member of a Pueblo tribe or nation, you can contact your tribal government and they can also sponsor you for the Healthy Soil Program. So we have a couple different links. I'll let Katie click on the SWCD link first. This will take you to the New Mexico Association of Conservation Districts, which has a directory that appears to be a little slow to load right now, but the directory will help you identify. There's the map coming up. You will look for where you are located, and the directory will then help you find your local Soil and Water Conservation District office, and has all the contact information for the district managers, so that you can get in touch with your local SWCD and let them know of your intentions to apply for the Healthy Soil Program. It's good to contact them as soon as possible. This way, they will let you know kind of how the process will work from their side. What things that they might require of you, maybe to show up at a meeting, present your project to the board. And then later on in the application process, they will be required to sign a letter of support verifying their participation in the Healthy Soil Program with you as your project sponsor. And so, again, you'll just locate your local soil and water conservation district office, find the contact information, and get with them as soon as possible. If you know that you're going to apply next year, it would be a good idea to maybe even start tomorrow and make those contacts. So that's for the SWCD portion. Now we're going to go back. If you happen to be a member of a Pueblo tribe or nation, Katie's got a link here to kind of help you get in contact with your Pueblo tribe or nation, and This will guide you through the process of identifying the contact information for your tribal government. And so, if you're a member of a Pueblo tribe or nation, you can use this route to go through your tribal government, or those individuals who are not a member, they will go through their local soil and water conservation district. So I think we'll go back to the website. And so again, step one, contact your partners. This is critical to begin the process, and the sooner you do that, the better. And so we'll move on to step two. And step two is where you're actually going to begin the process of conservation planning. And so the first thing that you will do to start the process of conservation planning after you've contacted your local NRCS office and tried to set up an appointment with the conservation planner is you're going to go to Web Soil Survey. And this is an online web-based soil survey that you can actually create your own soil map. And so we have created all the steps that you'll need. We actually have a video on here, but I'll have Katie just click on the web soil survey link so that you can again see what that's going to look like. So the web soil survey will begin here, and then you'll just click on that green button where it says Start Web Soil Survey. And from that point, you will actually you will locate your location or locate your farm or your ranch, create a soils map, and or if you're focusing on rangeland, you'll need to do an ecological site description map. And again, we have a video that we created to walk you through each step of creating both a soil map and an ecological site description map. And so it shouldn't be any trouble. This is kind of a GIS type map that you'll be using, but it's very user friendly. If you do run into any problems, please contact us. I could probably help you through it, or your NRCS office might be able to assist you as well to create one of these maps. And so, as you can see, Katie is continuing to zoom in, and that's what you'll do as you develop your map. You'll just zoom to your location. You can search for it by county, by address, by latitude, longitude, and it'll take you directly to your location. So that's the first thing you're going to want to do is create a soil map using Web Soil Survey. And so, because what this will do, whether it's a soil map on cropland or a ecological site description map on rangeland, this will help your conservation planner have an idea of the soils that you're dealing with, the plant conditions that should be out there on rangeland. It'll give them a host of critical information points that they can use to assist in the conservation planning process and kind of expedite the process a lot quicker. So we will scoot back to this is the Healthy Soil Program webpage. And so, like I said, go to Web Soil Survey and get your soil map or your ecological site description map created. Watch the video. If you still run into troubles, shoot us an email and we'll be happy, or I'll be happy to help you through it. Once you've got that done, then it's time to actually complete the conservation planning process with an NRCS certified conservation planner. Please note that deadline of February 21st, 2025 at 5 p.m. Your conservation plan or planning template must be signed before that time. Any plans or plan templates that are not signed after that date will be considered ineligible. We do this for the main reason that the sooner you get your conservation planning completed, the more you can work on fleshing out the details of your project. But also, it's in the interest of our partner, NRCS. We just don't want people to show up at the last minute on March 18th and ask for a conservation plan. So please note that there is a deadline to have conservation planning completed. and that is February 21st, 2025 at 5 p.m. And so this is to benefit everybody that's taking part in the process. But as you begin the conservation planning process, you have a couple different options. If you are currently working with NRCS or have worked with NRCS in the past, they can simply update your current conservation plan that you have on file. It'll likely be a longer document. It's actually completed utilizing NRCS's internal system. However, if you decide that you've never really worked with NRCS and you don't want to through the process of establishing farm records, that's perfectly fine. They still provide this process free of charge, and they can NRCS planners can use our templates that we've created. These templates are basically an expedited version of the full conservation plan created by NRCS. They were created in conjunction or cooperation with NRCS to make sure that the plans include all of the pertinent information that you as a landowner or land manager would need to develop a healthy soil program project. And so you'll see we have both a cropland planning template and a rangeland planning template. And so depending on the land use that you currently have, you'll select one of those and you'll download that. And I guess we can go ahead and click it open if you want to, Katie, if we can go that route. We'll just click through the conservation planning template for cropland. The rangeland is virtually identical. It just has a little bit different twist on it. It's mostly geared towards rangeland type practices. So this is what this template will look like. The first part of this template is just explaining how the template is used, and it is not to be completed entirely by the individual applicant. There is portions of it that you will complete, but then there are portions of it that the NRCS Conservation Planner is required to complete. So this top half of this page right here, that's everything that you're going to complete. As the individual applicant, you're going to put your name, the location of your farm, whether that be a physical address or section range township, latitude, longitude. You're going to document where the site location is that you're going to implement these healthy soil program practices. Also, we need the county. And then below the county, this is where you'll actually start looking at the different fields that may be associated with your project, and you will put either the acres or the square footage of either of those fields that you have listed. And so that's information that you'll fill in. And then finally, you as the individual applicant will describe your soil health related goals. And so I want you to kind of think about what the goals for your land are. And I was on a webinar last night, and it was brought up that, you know, sometimes we have a goal of we just want to improve the soil. But, I think as land managers and landowners, it's critical to kind of move beyond that and think about, do I want to improve the water infiltration of my soil? Do I want to improve the overall fertility, the production? Start thinking in those terms when you start thinking about your soil health related goals. And that's what information you will then relay to the conservation planner so that they can see, okay, they have a goal of this, and that's going to help them understand how they can make recommendations on some of the practices. So moving down below that, this is where the conservation planner, the first little box here, or set of boxes here, the conservation planner will describe your current cropping system and or management activities. And so this is something that, prior to meeting your conservation planner, it's good to kind of write down, how is the land currently managed? Do you have irrigation available? Is it dry land? Is it flood irrigated? Is it drip irrigated? What is your typical crop rotation? Do you perform tillage after every crop? This is the kind of information that is really beneficial to provide to your conservation planner as you're going through the planning process so that they can understand how the land has currently been managed. Not necessarily any judgment on that, but you just got to tell them how the land is currently managed and how you would like to move forward in steps of improving the overall soil health. And so, uh, if you could leave here with one thing today, as far as it relates to conservation planning, is to kind of start jotting down how you currently manage your land and those thinking about those goals that you would like to achieve, but utilizing the Healthy Soil Program. Moving down just a little bit more, the conservation planner will then identify the existing resource concerns that are related to soil health. And this is where the conservation planner and you can really have a good discussion on, what are the concerns? Because you may have seen things in the past, say in the spring, that they aren't seeing right now. And so it's important to inform them of things that happen, maybe a major rain event and there's some flooding or ponding that occurs, or some washes that start forming. Kind of have in the back of your mind those types of things, and just have that conversation with your conservation planner. But they're also going to take a good look at your land and walk around your field and talk with you and maybe help you observe some things that you haven't observed in the past, or maybe you can help them observe some things that they're not seeing. And so it's really good to develop a relationship with your conservation planner. But this is the point where they're going to actually identify those resource concerns that you're going to utilize to develop your project. Then below here, again, we have a reminder of those soil health principles. And then one thing we want everybody to think about is the timing of your agricultural or conservation practices. We do ask that they are planned in accordance with NRCS standards and specs. And if you have a large project and you can't get it all done in 15 months, this is where you can set up your project in stages or phases. You could have, year one and you complete certain practices, and year two, you complete certain practices. And so that's important to relay to your conservation planner that, maybe instead of taking everything at one time, you phase this out so that you can develop soil health over time, and they will help you determine, what time of year you want to do certain things. How much do you need to apply, whether that be, cover crop seed or, compost or biochar, planned seeding rates and things like that. But the conservation planner will fill out this entire portion. Over there on the left-hand column, they're going to identify the soil health related resource concerns that they saw during their field visit and their discussions with you. Then the planner will then make recommendations on agriculture practices that would be most relevant to mitigate the issues that they found. And so they're going to identify that. And then they're also going to provide you with some planning criteria. This planning criteria will identify the field that this is going to occur on, the number of acres that you're going to implement, the time of year that you're going to implement it. This is critical. Is it going to be a fall seeded cover crop, or is it going to be a summer seeded cover crop? And also the amount implemented, the species, of the cover crop, things like that. And then, of course, we're going to use the soil health principles from the list above to show which principles you are addressing with those agricultural practices. And then finally, down at the bottom, we have all the signature pages, or the signatures, and any additional notes from the planner that they may deem relevant to us, but also to you as the individual applicant. And again, you'll sign this. The NRCS Conservation Planner will sign this, and just identify the service center that they work at and the critical date that it must be completed by. So I think at this point we can go back. I'm not going to go through the rangeland one because it's virtually identical. The planner will identify your resource concerns, look at your goals and your current management system and what you want to move forward to. Okay, so if you are doing a bale grazing project, if you decide that after working with the conservation planner, that you have an area on your land that could definitely use the benefits of the bale grazing. There is a template that you must fill out, and I think Katie's going to click on that. And this is to be completed primarily by the conservation planner. And this, again, also must be completed by February 21st, 2025. Um, same kind of format as the previous one. Your name, project location, your soil health related goals, and then beyond that, that's where the conservation planner will then take over and fill out the remainder of this document. They will identify the resource concerns that are going to specifically be addressed by bale grazing, and the planner will then help determine the treatment area, the amount of forage that exists out there currently, the number of livestock that are going to be utilized to bale graze, and then they will determine the amount of hay that will be required, the timing that's going to be required, and the type of exclusion that is going to be required to actually reap the benefits of bale grazing. Please note that there's a required minimum of 25% residue that must remain on the land after bale grazing is completed. And this is to ensure that you're actually getting the full benefits of bale grazing. And so you've got to leave that residue on the land. But the conservation planner will help you fill out all of this, or they'll fill it out and help walk you through how the bale grazing is going to be completed. The next page of this, page 3, is when you're actually going to draw out a map. And I guess the first part of it is where they're going to show their calculations to determine the appropriate amount of hay that is going to be required. So we do ask that it's kind of like seventh grade math. You got to show all your work. And so we do ask that they show all those calculations so that we can verify that it is correct and we're not, that we don't have too much hay, or in a worst case scenario, not enough hay to actually serve the benefit of bale grazing. And then beyond that, they will draw out a map of kind of the layout of your place and how you're going to distribute the bales to ensure uniform distribution of the residue that remains, and also the livestock coverage of the treatment area. So, and then last page, additional notes and your signature and the planner's signature. Um, One note, we do want you to make sure, Katie mentioned earlier that incomplete applications, incomplete documents will run the risk of making you ineligible for the program, and this includes the templates. If you are doing bale grazing, or if you do have a conservation plan, it must be signed by both you and the conservation planner prior to that February date, so that it is eligible for the program. And so we do look at all these, and we do ask that all signature lines are completed. So I think at this point we can go back, and so. At this point, I hope you're not completely overwhelmed, but the conservation planning process, that's going to be the driver behind your entire project, because it's going to inform you on what your resource concerns are, what practices you can use to utilize them, and then the planner will help you determine the best time of year to implement those practices, how to implement those practices. And so we definitely encourage you to spend the vast majority of your initial time on this application in the conservation planning process, visiting with your conservation planner. And so as we move from step 2 to step 3, this is where you're actually going to develop your project. And so we have created a somewhat new document this year, and Katie's going to click on that. It's the project development guidance document. That's kind of a mouthful. So we are on that document at this point, and just want to point out that this is simply a guidance document. I don't want you to just skip over it because it's not something you don't have to turn in, because this can really help you move your application to the top of the list by following the guidance that's included in this document. And so the way this document works is it's not designed to replace anything on the website, but it's simply designed to help you after you have completed steps 1 and 2 that we just went through, So you've identified your partners, and Katie has a neat little graphic there. So steps 1 and 2 is to identify your partners, go through the conservation planning process, and then use this document to help guide your decisions on the conservation planning or the conservation practices and timing and stuff like that. And so included in this document is the resource concern guide sheets. Some of you that have seen the program in the past, these will be familiar to you, but we simply incorporated them into this document to make it a one-stop shop to guide you through developing a project. So, if Katie will scroll down, we'll kind of go through the document a little bit at a time. The next thing that you're going to see on this is the proven practice chart. That's at the very bottom. We'll again talk about that as we get to it. But again, we want you to use this document as much as possible during your project development phase to help you develop a quality project. So we'll scroll just a little bit further down. And this is, like I said, these are going to be familiar to many of you that have seen the program in the past. These resource concern guide sheets, we have one for cropland and one for rangeland. The one we're currently on is for cropland. Um, and what they do, again, it's simply a guide sheet to help you as you're working with your conservation planner and also after you've worked with your conservation planner to understand the correlation between the resource concerns that they identified. Katie's highlighting that. We have resource concerns all on the left-hand side of this document. But to understand the correlation between resource concerns and then agricultural practices that may be utilized to mitigate those resource concerns. And then following that in the far right-hand column are the soil health principles that applies to. So we'll just take this first one just as an example so that you can kind of see how you as an individual applicant can utilize this document. So let's just pretend you've went through the conservation planning process with your local NRCS certified conservation planner, and they have identified erosion, either wind or water, on your land. They've identified that as a primary resource concern that you need to address with the Healthy Soil Program. So they've identified the resource concern. So you use that, move to the next column, and it gives you a host of practices that can be utilized to mitigate that resource concern. This could be cover crops that are going to protect the soil surface. It could be utilizing no-till farming techniques or reduced till. It also could include utilizing field borders to protect against wind and also water erosion. And then, maybe mulching. So those are just a few practices that you can use, but you'll notice next to each of those practices is a blue 3-digit code. What that blue 3-digit code is it's the practice code that NRCS uses. Katie's got the one right now. She's got her mouse on mulching, which is 484. What that will do, if you click on that link, it will take you directly to the NRCS implementation requirements for mulching. And I would highly encourage each of you, if you're interested in one of these practices, to go ahead and click on that link. Say you want to do cover crops, but click on that link, and it will provide a wealth of information that is been proven to impact soil health, and it will help you understand how you can properly implement a cover crop or mulching or maybe a field border. And so encourage you to use this document as much as possible because it's going to provide you with a lot of information that you can use to fine tune that project for your specific operation and help you achieve the maximum benefit from not only the Healthy Soil Program, but also the individual practices that you're going to utilize using the Healthy Soil Program. So that's the one for cropland. I'll let Katie just continue to scroll slowly through that. We have quite a few resource concerns and practices that you can utilize to address those. And then we're going to move next to the rangeland one. Again, I'm not going to dive deep into this one because it's the exact same format as the cropland. We have the soil health principles at top, and then, of course, we have the resource concerns that are identified by the conservation planning process, ag practices that you can use to address them, and then the soil health principles. Again, we have the three-digit practice codes that NRCS utilizes in their world, so to speak, but it links you to a ton of information that I highly encourage each of you to take a look at if you're interested in implementing some of these practices. And so that's the Rangeland Resource Concern Guide Sheet. And again, this is all in one document. Not that we have to go all the way back to the top, but each of these elements of this document are hyperlinked so that you can just jump directly to the information that you need. But do encourage you to spend some time on this document. And as we finish out the document, this is something new this year. We've put a lot of time and effort. The Healthy Soil Program team has put a lot of time and effort into this. And this last portion of this document is what we call a proven practice chart. So over time, we've started to see what practices are most effective in improving soil health. And so we've identified those practices. You'll see over on the left-hand side, we identified the practice of, say, cover crop. Okay, so cover crop is we've determined that is one of the practices that is proven to improve soil health. So what this will help you do is understand not only some of the implementation requirements of the practice, but as we go from left to right, you'll see the practices identified, cover crop. But then we see the next column there is applicable land use. Cover crops can be used in gardens, community gardens, subsistence gardens, orchards, rangeland, cropland, vineyards. And I think that pretty much covers the gamut of it. But you can use cover crops on all of those land uses to improve soil health. As we move to the right just a little bit, this is where it actually begins to help you put together your timeline and budget, specifically, probably the budget portion more than anything. But this helps you understand some of the associated non-durable goods that may be required to implement a cover crop. So your non-durable goods is primarily going to be your cover crop seed. And so this helps tie everything together. And then now you're going to move to the next one. These are the associated durable goods that may be required to implement a cover crop. So we listed a no-till drill or a planter. This may not be something that you're going to purchase, but that would be a durable good that would be required to implement this practice. We also see the associated facilitating services. This is pretty much lines up with your budget template. You're going to have your non-durable goods, your durable goods, and then any services that may be required. So maybe you don't have the equipment and you're going to have to hire a contractor to actually plant that no-till crop for you. So that would be a facilitating service. And then we move over to special considerations, and do not disregard this column. There's a lot of important information in this column. So if you are wanting to implement a cover crop as part of your Healthy Soil Program application, it says applicants must justify their seeding rates if greater than NRCS recommended seeding rates. Okay, so NRCS, your conservation planner, is likely going to recommend a seeding rate for your cover crop based on the species that you've selected. If you submit an application with a rate higher than the NRCS recommended seeding rate, you're going to have to justify that. And so these are just helpful hints and tips that are going to go alongside those proven practices that will help you fully implement and fully flesh out your project. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let Katie kind of slowly scroll through this. You're going to see that we've tried to cover all of the bases on proven practices that are going to help improve soil health. And Also, any associated non-durable goods, durable goods, and services that may be necessary to fully implement that practice. And so, like I said, as Katie's going through this, you can see there's a host of practices on here. We've worked pretty hard to try to incorporate everything we've seen in the past that is truly a proven practice to improve soil health. And so, again, just going to let her scroll through that until we kind of reach the bottom. Encourage you to take this document. Uh, I don't want to say study it, but spend some time reading through here after you've gone through conservation planning with NRCS and just kind of learn more and more about how you can truly implement or correctly implement some of these practices. And so, gonna give you a chance while Katie's scrolling to the very top of this to kind of start thinking about some questions. If you have questions on this document, on how to use this document, and plug those questions into the chat, and we'll address them at the end of the webinar. So I think we'll go back to the website, and I think at this time, I think Katie's going to take over and kind of carry us on home.
Sure, you bet. Lots of good technical information there, Dean. Thank you. And again, we've laid this out in a step-by-step fashion so that you don't get overwhelmed. Tackle step one first, contact those partners, get that under your belt. Then move forward to step two. Until you complete step two, you're not ready for step three. We're on step three right now, and Dean walked us through some of those good resources. So he was just showing us all of the good information that lives on this guidance document. You might think a little differently. Maybe you're the sort of person who likes to go about their project planning in a narrative fashion. So we invite you to utilize these questions if you think more along those lines. Maybe a conversation with a friend or a fellow farmer or rancher to help get you in the right state of mind. But these are the good sort of questions we would encourage you to step through. Again, if this is a better approach for the way that you think. So as Dean mentioned, we're starting off no matter what, no matter your project goals, we're starting off with the resource concerns. What are the soil health related challenges on the piece of land you manage? We have to start there. From there, once you know the challenges you want to tackle, what are the soil health principles that will best get you there? You know the principles. Maybe it's keeping the soil covered. Maybe it's maximizing biodiversity. Maybe it's integrating animals into land management. Whatever the principle is, that will help you determine what your slate of practices might be that you might want to take on as part of your project. This question is really critical, and Dean alluded to it earlier. He said that we've got a longer calendar for these grants. That's right. So we'll be launching these projects come mid-July of next year. They'll be lasting a full calendar year and then some. So be thinking, once you've got your project in mind, can you fit those practices within this given time frame, mid-July through late September of the following year? Then we move into sort of the budgetary questions. So Dean alluded to these as well. Once you know the resource concerns, you move forward to your principles. Then you've got your ag practices in mind. What are the goods and services you'll need in order to get those conservation practices on the ground? So Dean suggested if it's a cover crop you're going to plant, that non-durable good, of course, is cover crop seed. Maybe the service there is that you're hiring someone who can operate a no-till drill to help you get that seed in the ground. So what are those goods and services that are required for you to actually do your project? Then we want you to go this far with your research. Where are you going to get those goods and services? Okay, so it's good to know what those goods and services are, but where will you actually source them from? And what are their actual costs? So thinking through these sorts of questions will really help you develop a great project for our funding consideration, literally from the ground up. So notice, the cost questions come very last. The goods and services questions come last. They are what you should be thinking of last. Your first things to think about are literally what's going on with your soil. Okay? So that takes us through the steps that we wanted to illustrate for you today. And let's just do a quick recap. So first, it's contacting the partners for your project. We know it's NRCS to help you with conservation planning. We know that on down the road, you will need project sponsorship. Otherwise, you can't access the dollars available through our program. We've got to have that intermediary party. But it's good for you to be on their radar so that they can help you craft your project if that's the situation that the Soil and Water Conservation District or the tribal government prefers. So again, you'll need them in your back pocket on down the road. We encourage you to and direct you to contact them even before you kick things off. That way they're aware that you will be asking for their project sponsorship support on down the road. Dean mentioned tackling conservation planning. We've got a deadline set for that of February. That way you'll have a full month between completing conservation planning and actually pressing submit on your Healthy Soil program grant application. You've got a full month to study all of that good information in your conservation plan or your conservation planning template in order to help you develop your project. So again, we invite you to consult that guidance document and or utilize these questions to help you really flesh out the idea. I'm going to show you what else lives on our website very, very briefly. Steps 4, 5, and 6 are steps that we will cover in a subsequent webinar happening after the 2025 calendar year kicks off. So again, we're encouraging you to tackle steps 1 through 3 with the remainder of the 2024 calendar year. I'm going to go ahead and collapse these steps just to clean the page up a tad. All right, so again, steps 1 through 3 are really the focus of today's webinar. But just so you're aware of what lives under these other steps, once you've developed your project idea, you can see here this is a screenshot of our budget template, our timeline and budget template. So this is where you'll literally document what's going on, what are your project activities, and what are the associated goods and services that you'll be purchasing and seeking reimbursement for. What are those goods and services you'll need to get those practices on the ground? You'll see a link to where our online grant application portal is. Were you to click on this today, you will not find a Healthy Soil Program grant application, not yet. That won't happen until early January, mid-January. So it's available to you here just so you can go ahead and create that free account if you'd like. But again, this is a step for later. That timeline and budget template will look something like this. And you can open it here and download it to your computer, making sure that you're working on it exclusively within Excel so that you maintain those mathematical equations that are set up in that document. Last step before you gather up all of your materials, make sure they're put in your application like you like them and everything looks how you want it to look. The final step is you take all this great information you've bundled, and this is when you go knock on the door of your Soil and Water Conservation District or your tribal government. Again, you've already contacted them. That was step number 1. So this finalizes the process to say, hey, remember me? We've talked and you helped me shape my project. You were really good to consult with me on maybe some cover crop species along with NRCS. You should be familiar with this party by this point. But your last step is to go seek their support, formalizing that support in this template here. And last but not least, finalizing and submitting the online application by next March. So again, if you're feeling overwhelmed because of all of this information, March 19th is our deadline. Here we are early November. We're coming to you early so that you can bite off these steps one at a time. So again, I'll just collapse all of these steps to remind you that what we're really focused on today are steps 1, 2, and 3. And we'll come back to you later to walk you through steps 4, 5, and 6. Dean, is there anything else on this site or elsewhere that you might want to show to people? I think we've pretty well stepped through all the things available here.
Yeah, I think this is pretty much everything we needed to cover today as far as the website, and so I think we're good to go at this point.
Okay, great. Well, I will stop sharing and just invite people to ask their questions, either placing them in the chat or maybe you've got something that translates better in real time, in which case we invite you to use that raise hand feature and we'll invite you to get unmuted. So while those thoughts are percolating, Dean and I will catch up with what's been going on in the chat here.
Okay, I think the first question that I see is from Rebecca and Mark. It said that they were funded last year, but unable to complete because of irrigation issues and some things like that. It says we want to submit the same proposal for 2025. Finally have water. Do we need to obtain the soil planning document and soil sampling again, or that is, do we start from scratch? I believe you're referring to the conservation planning template, and so what I'm going to say, if you have a current conservation plan template that is, within the last year that has been completed and is still current, meaning you haven't implemented some of the practices that are on there. The resource concerns are the same. Um, you can use the same information, but we do require that it's updated on our new form. And so you will have to make another visit to the NRCS office and just verify that, all of those resource concerns still exist. You're still planning the same practices, and visit with that conservation planner and just have it updated on our new form. As far as soil sampling, if you have a current soil sample that is current, meaning in the last year, last 12 months, we will allow that for the pre-project soil test analysis. So if you have a current soil test, we will be able to, you can utilize that. However, we can't reimburse that cost, but you can utilize that for your pre-project soil test. Rebecca and Mark, if that did not answer your question, please let me know, and we'll try to see what we can do.
Dean, I'm going to pitch you a related question. This comes from Cecilia Baca. Since I just had an updated conservation plan completed this year, should I just use it for the 2026 application?
And that'll be the same information I'm going to provide, that we do just ask that you get it updated on the new form. If the resource concerns are the same, you haven't completed those practices, we just ask that it be completed on the new form and signed off again by NRCS. The reason we do that is because, say you had a conservation planning template completed last year, maybe you actually implemented some of those practices without participating in the Healthy Soil program. It would be beneficial to the planner to understand, and also us to understand that, hey, I've completed a couple of these practices and I'm moving in this direction, but we need to know that, and so does the planner. And so we just ask that update it on our new form. If it's an NRCS conservation plan, that should be as simple as asking them to print off a new version and just sign it again. And so shouldn't be too much hassle in that. Cecilia, I hope that answers your question.
Christine. This next one is from Christine. Is there a question comment period to be included in the FAQs, or at least a deadline? So Christine, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Just raise your hand if there's more to your question than I'm reading here. But again, we're harvesting questions from the chat today. If you want to send us an email later with a question you think of later, that's fine. So we've already got some pretty extensive FAQ documents. I think the one for the individual applicants is 14 pages. So we're addressing pretty well A to Z some of the more frequently asked questions that tend to come up around this program and have for its 6 years of existence. So what I would suggest to you is, if you'll pop something to us today in the chat or over the weekend through our Healthy Soil Program email account, we'd be glad to consider those questions and whether or not they get included in this year's FAQ. We want to get that FAQ posted as soon as possible, since we're encouraging people to pick up the phone and start making those calls and making those connections to get their project advanced. So while I'm on the topic, I'm going to drop a link in the chat, which is to our Healthy Soil Program email account. And this is an email account that several of us, Dean and myself included, monitor on a daily basis, a regular basis, so we can route those questions to the appropriate party. Keep ticking through here to see what questions are popping up.
Yeah, I think there's one from Cecilia about the application cycle. I might let you tackle that one.
Okay, with this increase in the implementation cycle, will our application cycle and deadlines be changing, or will there be overlap from 1 year to the next application date? Cecilia, I'll invite you to unmute so that I can hear your question in real time. I might be missing some context here, and we might come back to you. Will, I noticed your comment in the chat about Socorro Soil and Water Conservation District and how you all are hosting events and hiring an NRCS certified conservation planner. So that is awesome to help out all those people in the Socorro SWCD jurisdiction. Thank you for that. Eric Nichols, hopefully you were able to find the raise hand feature. If not, if you'll pop into the chat one more time, but I see Robin offering you the instruction to look under reactions. Okay, Dean, you and I can tackle this one. It's a simple question also from Eric. Is this grant available to apply for every year? I'm still in the process of acquiring land around me, so I am not quite ready yet.
Yes, Eric, you can apply every year. However, what we continue to look for is continued improvement in your projects, and so you would definitely have to improve upon what you've already done. I mentioned earlier that your conservation planning may identify, phase one, phase two, or year one, year two, and so we definitely encourage individuals to do that. But at the same time, you will definitely have to build upon what you're currently doing if you do apply every year. And so can't be the same project. It'll have to build upon what you've currently done. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I key in on a slightly different piece of the question that he's still in the process of acquiring the land. So you probably heard this in an earlier slide, Eric, that there has to be an existing relationship with the land. Either you own it, you lease it, you manage it on behalf of, say, your grandmother. So there has to be an existing relationship with the land that you intend to improve through these soil health practices. A question here from Scott that I'll pitch your way, Dean, and we can both chew on it. Is it possible to have a local rancher who is grazing on adjacent land bring their cows onto my land to help implement bale grazing?
And yes, that is quite possible, Scott. If you don't have access to your own livestock, you can definitely work with your neighbors or others to bring livestock onto your land to implement bale grazing. Again, you would just have to complete that bale grazing template, and but no, that's more than possible.
Dean, I'm just going to share out with you all what I'm seeing in the chat about Socorro SWCD. So they mentioned they're going to be doing a series of events and that they're hiring a contract conservation planner who's NRCS certified. So Lisa asked the question, will it be okay for non-Socorro SWCD folks to attend your events? Will gives the green light there. So if you've not seen that in the chat, you might want to go poke through some of what's been offered there. Can you implement different projects in one application? Question from Carlos.
My initial thoughts, yes, but is maybe there's some additional context you could place with that, Carlos, to give me a kind of a better understanding. I guess my first thought would be, rangeland, cropland. Yes, you can incorporate those all into one application. But is there something additional that I may be missing from your question? You feel free to unmute.
For example, doing border planting for wind control and also for pollinator feeds locations. Also implementing electric fencing for rotational grazing and increasing number of animals. I'm looking to increase my flock of sheep. So that's an example of three different issues or items to include. Can these be all included in one application? Do they need multiple applications? Or do I need to do it year by year by year?
Again, I think they could all be included in one application if it's adjacent land units and stuff like that. I think you could include them all in one application. You just have to work with your conservation planner to kind of pile it all into one conservation plan based on what you're wanting to accomplish. But yeah, I don't see a problem with trying to put that all under one application. The one thing I do, and please don't take this wrong, but I want to make sure everybody kind of understands that we mentioned the increased grant period, but it may be necessary if you're looking at your project. You may decide to focus on one aspect of that project in order to kind of not do too many things at one time. But if you feel that, or if any applicant feels that they can complete all of these practices within that 15-month period, then definitely include them. But it may be worth a visit with your NRCS conservation planner to see, how long does it take to, maybe implement this portion and this portion and really again just take that time during the planning process to determine how that's all going to fit into your budget and timeline. But you can definitely include multiple project types, I guess you could say, into one application. Not a problem there.
Carlos, I would add to that that if you are successful, this is a competitive process. So if your application gets selected among the pool that shakes out of all this process, $24,999.99. That's your upper limit. So you might also utilize that in your thinking to say, well, gosh, if I'm going to do 100 acres on rangeland, I think I'd rather put the 25K there as opposed to scattering it across these multiple components of a project. So something else to keep in mind there is that ultimate funding cap of just beneath $25,000. I'll keep ticking through the questions here, Dean, and I see that Cecilia needs to be invited to unmute, so let me find you in the queue here. And just a reminder, if you all will raise your hand, that will help us see you to invite you to unmute, but you should be good to go, Cecilia.
I'm just wondering because I know having been through these cycles to finish this time, and I am seeing some good things already on the land. But I'm just wondering how this is going to impact the application. Is this extended period, does that mean we're going to have a lot of overlap between when we're finishing one project and when the next application is opening up?
Just to add some context, Cecilia, no one applicant is guaranteed that they'll be invited to participate in the program year after year after year. So back to a point that Dean earlier made, projects have to advance. So they have to add some other component, treat a different piece of the landscape that you operate on, or add a different principle, a different practice. So I would offer that as just really important context that no one is guaranteed that they'll be invited to participate multiple years in a row.
Right.
This is our first year to do a 15-month grant term, so we're still working out some of the details on that. We don't have the details for what the FY27 cycle will look like, for instance. So all I can share with you right now is we know what the FY26 calendar will look like, and it's based on a new set of funds from the state legislature that come with a 2-year window. So that's the reason that we're able to extend the grant term for people, if you're wondering what the background is. So to put a bow on everything, we know that the grant term for FY26 starts July, ends in September of 2026. So you've got nearly a full 15-month window there. We'll see what the FY27 cycle looks like once we get this first cycle under our belt and see how everything is going to work with our existing procedures at NMDA. I hope that's helpful to you, since we don't yet have clarity on what future cycles will look like.
That you guys were able to get that extended time. No,
Thank you.
that's fine, but I'm very, very grateful that you did get this extended time.
Yes. Thank you for that, Cecilia. And I see that Scott's got
I feel
his
like
hand
that
up.
was one of the combined reporting back on something. Yeah.
You're right. So this addresses that inability to utilize the full ag calendar. So yep, 15-month grants is what we're offering now. Scott, I'm going to ask you to unmute. So if you'll take care of that button on your end, you should be able to ask your question out loud. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, so I have a 40-acre parcel that I do not have access to water at the moment in terms of a well. Is it possible to use some of the funding for helping to cover the cost of drilling the well to use for both for for livestock and wildlife, for ag, for doing some of the conservation planting stuff in terms of windbreaks and pollinator habitat?
Unfortunately, Scott, the program will not allow us to actually pay for the drilling of a well.
Okay.
For that, however, we do recommend you visit with your local NRCS office to see if they have funding available through the EQIP program for that. I will make a plug for NRCS for anybody that's listening and is interested in EQIP. Their application deadline is tomorrow, and so if you are looking at applying for EQIP, which you would have to do, apply for EQIP or find another funding source, unfortunately, for drilling a well. But EQIP could definitely cover that, but you would have to be in your local NRCS office by tomorrow. That's their deadline for the current year EQIP, and so I encourage you to do that for that particular practice.
Okay, thank you.
You, Scott, and I see related questions from Jill. So EQIP, as Dean just shared with us, is separate and apart from an NMDA. So this set of funds is strictly for the soil health projects that NMDA will award later. If you've got EQIP questions, again, Dean recommended calling NRCS. I hope that's helpful to you, Jill. Dean, I see that we're closing in on 4:30, and I also see that a lot of the final questions that were asked related to eligible versus ineligible expenses. So I want to give people a heads up that you'll see some of those examples in our frequently asked questions document that I mentioned earlier. Again, if you've got questions that are burning in your brain, send us an email, and I'll pop that email address one more time into the chat. Get those to us over the weekend, and that way we can consider adding them to this year's FAQ. Will we answer questions that don't come to us over the weekend, that come to us a month from now? Of course. All I'm saying is if you'd like to see your question in the FAQ this weekend would be a good time to pop that over to us, but we're always reachable at that email address. And as a general rule for our program, if it is not directly related to your on-the-ground project to improve soil health, it probably won't be considered for funding. So if it's power tools, we say, how is that going to help you with soil health? Those are out. If they're building materials, we say, what does it have to do with soil health? Those are out. So those are the kind of basic guidelines we offer within that FAQ. And I offer that to you now so that you can wrap your heads around it as you wait for that FAQ to be finalized and posted. Dean, any closing comments from you before we wrap up at 4:30 on the nose?
Not a whole lot. I just want to tell everybody we appreciate your time this afternoon and joining this webinar. And again, use that email that Katie just posted into the chat. If you have questions about any specific area of the program, and we will definitely try our best to answer your question and get back to you as soon as possible. And other than that, hope you have a good afternoon and stay warm.
I echo all of that. The only thing I'll add is that I'm also dropping into the chat a link to our homepage. Go there, get signed up for our weekly emails. Again, if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, those weekly emails will help you kind of digest things in bite-sized chunks between now and when we formally launch our application come January of 2025. Thanks again, everyone. We wish you a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.